He'll pop this one up. Bichette going out. Roden coming in and makes the catch. That is the ball game. So on a cold and misty night at Fenway, the Red Sox bats take a bit of a nap. Only 5 hits. And again, it ties the season low. Toronto wins it 6-2.
Fenway Park tonight, Garrett Crochet on the mound. A likely win there, but enough about the future. Let's go back to the past. Let's go back to last night. 617-779-0985 is your number here on the Baseball Hour. And I will tell you quickly, short program tonight. We'll be done at 6:30. Bruins play the Devils. Obviously, we carry that game right here on 98.5 The Sports Hub. Pre-game starts at 6:30 with Ryan Johnston and Bob Beers, as always. And the Celtics also play tonight. We are also your home for Celtics basketball. They play at the New York Knicks. Jimmy Stewart, that game is on WROR. Is that right? 105.7?
And it's at Madison Square Garden.
What did I say? Oh, I get you. Yes, the game is at Madison Square.
Sorry, that's a 5-minute difference.
Madison Square Garden. That game will be carried on 105.7. And pregame there starts at 7 o'clock. So plenty to listen to here on Beasley Boston Radio. So here's where I want to start, just quickly on the game last night, because the Red Sox went 1-for-11, I think it was, with men in scoring position, very similar to the series they had in Texas. Jose Barrios was the starting pitcher for the Blue Jays, and I do think if we're going to look at the sample size, there's a little bit of there's a little sample to draw from here with the Red Sox in the early part of the year, most notably this. When they hit, they win. When they don't, they lose. And that is true of most teams, but I also think it's especially noteworthy with this Red Sox team because they're built to win multiple ways, or at least in theory. At least we thought they were built to win in multiple ways. Lineup was good, pitching was improved, and therefore you add those two things together. What makes you a playoff team is your ability to win multiple ways. High scoring, low scoring, we can outpitch you, we can outhit you, we can defend, we can run, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Except what we've learned about the Red Sox here in the early part of the year, they really haven't been able to pitch. So, how does that change? Does it change? And just a couple of numbers to throw at you. When the Red Sox score 5 or more, they're 5-1. Their only loss was at Baltimore when they trailed 8-3 going into the 9th inning. Now, they made that game 8-5, so it sounds better than it was, but it wasn't exactly a good offensive night for the team. So that's number one. Number two, they're 1-4 when they score 4 or fewer. The only win was the Garrett Crochet game in Baltimore where he pitched a 3-0 shutout. He only went 8, but they shut him out. Chapman came into the game. That's the game that started the 5-game winning streak. So, simply put, they need to find ways to win when they're not just bashing the ball all over the ballpark. I think that is ultimately going to determine how far they go, what they become. So this is not a question I've necessarily asked you about the Red Sox yet because it's still very early in the season. But what do you think they are? Where do you think they're going? Because I've said from the beginning, early in the year, some of the hype surrounding the Red Sox was so great that there were people picking them for the World Series, in part because the American League is weak, the Yankees pitching was banged up, and the National League is clearly much, much stronger, so the competition is on that side, and therefore the path to the World Series is a little easier in the American League, all of which is true. But that is also incumbent on the Red Sox pitching well, or pitching better. Outside of Crochet, they're a sub-500 team. By a game, not by much, but they're under 500. They've won both the Crochet starts. Opening day in the 3-0 game in Baltimore. That's it. If the next two guys in the rotation, Houck and Buehler, and Brian Bayo when he comes back, if 2 of the 3 guys there don't pitch well, I think the Red Sox are going to be hard-pressed to challenge the iron of the American League, whoever that is. It may be them. I wouldn't rule that out. Now, I don't know that they'll stack up and match up with the iron of the National League, but you get the idea. The pitching hasn't been good enough. And that's not a negative take. It's not me blasting the pitching staff. It hasn't been good enough. If they're going to go where they can go, if they're going to hit their ceiling, they have to pitch better. So 617-779-0985. We'll start with your calls immediately. I will also tell you that in the second half of the program, again, only 30 minutes tonight, I do want to get to something that I tweeted out earlier in the day that crossed my mind. And that concerns something the Red Sox should do with one of their primary blue chip, star-studded prospects. And I would begin this process immediately. So, but let's kick it off tonight with John in the car. John, fire away.
Tony, they're a playoff team probably, which, you know what, the Cardinals got in with 85 wins one year and got hot and won the World Series. So if you get in, who knows? But that's where they are. I think we can all agree there. That being said, I think they gave one away last night. Everybody's going to play in this cold weather for some reason. I don't know why Major League Baseball won't start these cold weather teams on a 21-game road trip. Especially with the interleague, you can do this and kind of make it right in the second half of the year so that you're not playing in 27-degree weather with the wind and the rain. But they had a chance last night. It was still a 2-run game. And why did they pitch to Springer in the 7th inning? Why not walk him when it's 3-1 and pitch to the little fat catcher? I mean, Springer rips one up the right side. The game's over after that. To me, that was Cora. If we're going to yield Cora as this great mind, there was no reason to pitch to Springer after that guy stole that base. Walk him and pitch to the catcher.
Okay, so John, look, the thing about the weather, just let me start there quickly. A 21-game road trip to start the year, do you want to bury them to start the season? Is that what you want to do? And I don't mean the Red Sox. I mean anybody that plays in cold weather. The Phillies are going to open with 21 games on the road, or the Mets, or the Yankees, or the Minnesota Twins. Bad example, maybe. But you get the idea. Well, at least in the old days. You can't send everybody on the road for 21 games. So they delay it as much as they can, for the most part. I don't have a huge problem with this part of it. The Red Sox opened the season with a week of road games. Often, and they opened in Texas. They often open in California. How are you going to prevent everybody from playing in the cold? And you can put roofs on the stadiums. It'll still be cold if it's not a dome. So Seattle's not quite as cold here, but let's not get ridiculous. Seriously. Baseball, what are you going to do in the playoffs? You're not going to play in October because it's cold? We can't play in the cold. Please. Again, the game is different at the beginning of the year and the end. Fine, no problems. By the way, another thing that should concern you about the pitching. Pitchers typically dominate in April. The Red Sox are not dominating on the mound. 20th overall in team ERA, 21st in starters ERA, 19th in relievers ERA. So again, 19, 20, 21. That's got to get better. Sean in Colorado. Go ahead, Sean.
Tony, how are you?
Good.
First, I want to say I'm sorry. I called in yesterday saying I want to see less of Connor Wong. That is not what I meant by that. So prayers up to him. Hope he recovers quickly. But I wanted to talk about Ceddanne Rafaela's defense. You talk a lot about how the pitching's not meeting their expectations. Ceddanne Rafaela needs to be in that field a lot if this is how the pitching staff is going to act, because he provides that exceptional defense. And on top of that, I don't care if he's batting 100. He provides such an elite level defensive center field, and you have the bats in your lineup that his bat should be irrelevant. He could go 0 for his next 100. And he's still a plus to your team if the rest of your team is doing what they're supposed to do and batting 1 through 8.
Yeah, so Sean, I'll tell you what, don't go too far with it. Again, you can't go 0 for 100. It's not ridiculous. I mean, let's not get ridiculous is what I really mean. And so let me look up quickly what Rafaela's batting average is. I know it's garbage. He's been horrendous here offensively in the early part of the year. He's batting 188. He only has 4 strikeouts. But he's really given them nothing. All of his hits are singles, no extra base hits. He has a couple of steals, but the at-bat's got to be better. The on-base is 278. Okay, you can't make it. You can't make outs 80% of the time. You can't do it. In his case, it's 73% or whatever it is, but you get the idea. It's got to be better than that. You can always put a guy into the game as a defensive replacement late, or you can hit for him late too. But ideally, if you have a lead, you can put him in the field. I mean, if he's not careful, he's going to lose the center field job to somebody like Christian Campbell, and he's going to be a utility guy. So again, before we celebrate the contracts on players, can we make sure they can play first? That Rafaela deal from last year, it was a good deal for him because he might not be that good. Ray and Revere, go ahead, Ray.
Yeah, Tony, I heard you talking about bringing up Meyer and potentially Anthony, and I am all for that. I mean, frankly, I think they deliberately tanked for like 6 years to get draft picks, and it worked. They got 3 picks at the top of the draft. They converted 2 into Crochet, and Meyer's a stud, and they're going to get another high pick this year, but I don't have a rooting interest for this team with this pitching staff. I don't think they have much beyond Crochet. I'd rather see them bring up these kids and go all in on developing them. They're exciting.
Yeah, so Ray, I'm not giving up a season yet. I'm not giving up a season. They're not that good. The league's not that good. All you got to do is win, 86, 87 games and make the playoffs in the American League this year? Somewhere in that area, and you want them to just give up? They're 6-5, 11 games in. Go all in with the kids? The other thing is then you're introducing the kids into what kind of environment? A losing environment? Now, I know you categorize Crochet as a kid. I get it. But you need both. Why sign Bregman then? You didn't want Bregman here? So we're going to criticize the Red Sox for not spending enough money to be competitive, and then we're going to go all in with the kids? That's what you want? Most people don't. The other thing is, I want them playing in meaningful games. That's when you find out. That's what you can learn and see what you have. Put them in big games in Yankee Stadium. Put them in big games in Baltimore and in Toronto and in Cleveland and any other city in the league you want to pick. Put them in those big spots and let them learn it. Let them understand what it's like to lose. Mookie Betts and Jackie Bradley and Xander Bogaerts, and Bogaerts came up in 13, but work with me. When they became the core players on the team, they lost before they won it. And they lost in some big spots. They made the playoffs for a couple of years before they won in 18. Don't just put a suck team out there and think you can do that in the minors. So, no, they owe you a real team. Just develop the kids. You can develop the kids and win at the same time. You can do both. Quickly, Kevin in a car.
Hey, I'm not going to hit you on Sandy Alcantara today. I was wondering, you said yesterday that Jarren Duran would be the most likely tradable of the outfielders. Can he bring you a hitting catcher?
So, Kevin, it's a good question. I would think he probably could. I think Duran's got value. You'd have to move him sooner rather than later. At the moment, and look, these scenarios are not short-term scenarios. I don't think Jarren Duran's going anywhere in the short term.
I think they tried to move him in the offseason, Seattle.
Okay, so he's here. He's here. And Jimmy, they may have. I mean, they were probably looking for pitching. The thing about Duran that makes him different than all the other guys is he's older. He's 28, which Jimmy knows. But for those of you who don't know, he was late developing. So, and look, good for Duran for turning into the player he's turned into. I never thought he'd be this good. The way it started at the beginning was really ugly. But he hung in there. And he's turned into a dynamic offensive player especially. So, but I don't think he is a candidate to be signed to a long-term deal because of his age. And so is he a candidate to be dealt? Sure, yeah. And Roman Anthony could go play left field. I mean, it's totally feasible. I think there's another place they could put Roman Anthony and open up for a different spot for him on the diamond. We'll tell you what that is when we come back.
This is the Baseball Hour on the
The first pitch, or that's how the game started last night. On the very first pitch, Bo Bichette hit one to right center field deep. Ceddanne Rafaela, when the ball went by Wilyer Abreu, I thought, but the angle Abreu was taking, he thought the ball was gone. Rafaela came out of nowhere and made I often pan these kinds of plays. I think people overrate these catches. That catch by Rafaela was ridiculous last night. Watch the replay. Watch where he ends up. Almost to the visitors' bullpen. He slid on the ground by the door that allows relievers to come in the game for the Red Sox. He almost landed over by where the visitors' bullpen was. Amazing catch by Rafaela. Amazing. And I asked Jimmy Stewart this off the air last night because it happened while we were here. The game started at 6:45. One of the best catches I've ever seen in center field. It's on my Twitter account now. I tweeted it last night. Bob Zupsik caught a ball at the, in the triangle, leaning over into the bullpen from the side of it. And if you watch the play, he ran back, ran to the side, then leaned in and caught it. Took his eye off the ball twice to position himself before he leaned into the bullpen. Was incredible. I don't know why that reminded me of it, but it did. You don't see many great catches where the outfielder ends up almost by the center fielder ends up almost by the visitor's bullpen. That is covering some serious ground. Serious ground. And off a right-handed hitter's bat, the ball slicing away from him. Tremendous play by Rafaela. Now, quickly, because again, short show tonight, Bruins coming up next. Pregame starts at 6:30. Roman Anthony's in AAA. Where's he going to play? How do the Red Sox make room for Roman Anthony? And I mean this as much in the long term as the short. In fact, I mean it more in the long term than the short. And the way to make room for him might be at first base. So hear me out. Casas has been up and down over his time in the big leagues. He was brought up at the end of 2022, played in 20-some-odd games, and then struggled badly at the beginning of 2023. Finished that year strong. Everyone had high hopes. Got hurt in 2024, missed half the year. In the interim, the Red Sox approached him about a long-term contract, and we haven't heard a ton, but they haven't gotten close. So that suggests to me they may ultimately have to trade him. And his name was in rumors during last offseason, most notably with Seattle. I'd start playing Roman Anthony at first base in the minor leagues. My guess is the Red Sox have thought of it, and they haven't done it because they know the message it will send to Casas in the big leagues. And they don't want to totally quit on Casas, nor should they. I'm just telling you, I don't think Roman Anthony's a center fielder. Right field at Fenway is kind of like center field in many ballparks. You need a good outfielder out there, and who's going to mess with Abreu right now? And left field, Duran was in the All-Star game last year, even though some people suggested he didn't deserve to be.
In fact, they should cancel the game because he's there.
Well, you could say that, Jimmy. I'd consider working Anthony out at first base. Just see what it looks like. Give him some reps over there. The more places he has to play, the better. To me, it's something to seriously consider. And again, I'd be willing to bet they've thought about it and they've resisted because they don't want to mess with Casas, at least not yet. Mike is in the car. Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, go ahead. What do you got?
Yeah, I know you guys talking a lot about pitching and stuff. And first of all, I just want to say that Christian Vasquez trade was probably one of the worst in the history of Red Sox. That they're crying earlier about not having enough catchers. Well, you go in and trade good players like that away, that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, I'm going to let you go, Mike. I think they did okay in that deal. They got Wilyer Abreu. So I'd make that trade again. I think that, but I will say this. I said during the offseason, the Red Sox aren't talking enough about the catching. The catching situation's not good. They needed a starting catcher last year. This was the downside of the Kyle Teal deal for Garrett Crochet, and we would all make that trade again. We all like Crochet. But if you can get a catcher that can hit, and I don't think Teal's up to the big leagues yet. Let me just double check that.
No, he's still in AAA, but he's smashing AAA.
Okay, so look, Teal has hit since the second he got into the professional baseball in the minor leagues. And if you have a catcher that can hit, it's a huge advantage. We were talking about this a little while ago. Defensively, would he have held up? I don't know. I have no idea.
I don't think that the Red Sox thought that he was going to project as a catcher. I think he was going to project as a middle infielder.
But first round pick, caught in college, like, to me, and let's see what the White Sox do with him. We'll get an idea.
They'll screw it up. They're the White Sox.
We'll get an idea there as to what his potential is. Noah's in Kansas City. Go ahead, Noah.
Yeah, man, just on your point earlier about where the Red Sox project, I mean, I think easily we should be on a 90-win projection, and I think the starting pitching will actually end up okay with Bayo coming back, and I think, Giolito or Sandoval have to give you something later in the year. Either way, if none of those work out, I think with Anthony, if he's not willing to try to move over to first base, or I view him as more of a left fielder, if anything, as well. Move him at the trade deadline for, pitching, or as you're just on the topic of it, some sort of catching or something of that nature, or move Casas and Duran to combo. I mean, I feel like the team has a lot of options when it comes to maneuvering that.
Yeah, so there's no middle ground with Red Sox fans, isn't there?
That's good.
Ray and Revere wants to give up already 11 games into the season. He wants to get rid of the veterans and go with all kids. This guy wants to trade Roman Anthony, Jarren Duran, and who was the other one? Did he say Meyer?
Yeah, Casas also wanted to get rid of the kids too in preseason.
Casas. Holy crap, slow down. It's been 11 games. I'm just telling you long-term what to think about.
We have a baseball hour to do tonight, Tony.
Okay, but so let's not just go to extremes after 11 games. Unlike other sports, it's a big picture sport. It's a big picture sport. You do have to approach it that way. I'm just telling you, Roman Anthony's coming. Marcelo Meyer is coming. They're going to need places to play sooner or later. Bruins up next. Ryan Johnston, Bob Beers against New Jersey, right, tonight, Jimmy? Right here on 98.5. And then you can also catch the Celtics pregame at 7, the game at 7:30 on 105.7. We'll catch you tomorrow.